to develop a frontage road that does follow the highway pretty closely. And then at some point, we'll come back here.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area.
Oh my God. You've got to be kidding me. Really? Really? I didn't even know I had disasters on. Well, this changes everything. If you're new here, my name's Diana, and welcome to Sandy Beach, a vanilla build for beginners to the game. So a common thing a lot of new players struggle with is not enough educated workers. And our city has been plagued with this for quite some time now. A big issue that happens is the demand meters aren't always indicative of what you actually need. If you just zone to empty out the demand meter, what's going to happen is you're going to actually see all of the buildings develop, but because of the game's mechanics and how it handles workers, we don't always get the amount of workers that we need. So as you can see, even though we have 8 out of 8 workers, they're not balanced. We have mostly uneducated workers when the business just needs 1. And it needs 4, but we're actually only getting 3 highly educated workers and no well-educated workers. So in order to remedy this, we do have to pay attention to where we zone, what we zone, and our education. Of course, we're going to take the easy way out today because we have quite a bit of money and I want to create some nice spaces for our town. So we're going to go through and actually delete a bunch of these buildings that are going to be abandoned anyway and replace them with something nicer. That way the educated workers that do work there will face some layoffs, but they'll go find work at the businesses that are remaining. So let's do some creative destruction. And I didn't mean to delete those high-density residential, but it's okay. They'll find a new place to live. Because this little plot of land has excellent access to public transit and many amenities, I think it's a great place to put a nice signature unique building. So let's see what we have available to us. There are many unique buildings to choose from, and each one of them is beautiful. They function somewhat like parks, where they actually increase the happiness and entertainment of your city, but they also draw in tourists from out of town, which helps improve your city's quality of life overall. Since this is a highly trafficked area, I think a shopping mall is going to be excellent here to replace all of the commercial and office that we got rid of. So let's clear this area out and make it ready for development. It's a best practice to remove any trees before building roads because they still exist underneath there, and it does reduce your frame rate a little bit with each tree because the game still loads them. Another thing we want to look at is the terrain, just to make sure it's level and flat. And so for this road, I actually want to realign it a little bit. And so in order to level the terrain, I actually just right-click the area that I want, then I hold the left click in the area I want to level out, and it'll take a little bit of time, but if you go slow with it, you can get great results. I do want to preserve these rocks here and some of the cliff. I just want to create a little more space so that we can have a nice, clean, relatively square area to put our shopping mall and other amenities near it. We actually have these new roads with the bike lanes, so I think we're going to upgrade this. I do want to make sure that this road connects up at a square, even angle, and the game's given me a little bit of hassle, so I think that'll work better. And to make this even cleaner, we'll use our curved road tool, and we'll go just like that. And now we have a little nicer looking connection. It's not as wiggly and it's straight and clean, and we have this nice triangular plot of land to work with, and I think that we can make something good happen here with the Posh Mall. So let's get our asset and see how it fits. I think that'll be nice, especially with the tram stop right here, which when we unpause the game, this broken line will fix itself. And that way when the tram stops, it'll be right in front of the mall. And we're gonna actually detail up this whole empty space. A thing a lot of new players struggle with is detailing and making nice looking spaces. While the gameplay mechanics are important and a fun part of the game, I actually find the detailing to be some of the most enjoyable part, where you can take what looks like a bland, drab, boring space, and with a few trees, paths, bushes, and props, make it into something truly nice. I believe fences came with the Park Life DLC, so if you don't have them, don't worry. You can always put rows of bushes or trees instead, and it'll look just as good. What I like about the fencing is it actually gets rid of the zoning along these roads, so we don't accidentally zone it later on. And right here, I am gonna put a little road for people to come into. It's purely decorative, but it'll be a nice little extra service entrance into the actual mall itself. So we've got all of these beautiful trees to choose from, and I'm gonna stick with sort of the palm tree tropical theme, considering this is a beach map, and just line some California palms at the entrance. trying to be as symmetrical as possible within the limits of the game. If you're on PC, there are mods that allow you to place these in a straight line, but we're gonna do it the hard way. This is a trick I like to do to make spaces feel a little more enclosed, is to actually line them with one particular type of tree, just to give it some sort of unified theme. Not every space needs to look like this, but I think for this mall, it gives it this really upscale feel. And when detailing your spaces, I think it is important to pay attention to context and what you're trying to achieve. And so for this, my goal is to make a posh mall, which is exactly what this is. And palm trees usually tend to, at least to the untrained eye, evoke a sense of luxury and like you're on a vacation. That is, unless you're in a place like Bakersfield. Another thing that I like to do is line the paths usually with some sort of small vegetation. I do really like this wild hedge, and lining the paths just makes things feel a little more official and thought out, as if there was an actual landscaper that designed this. Now, I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know what I'm doing, but I do like to make beautifully detailed spaces. And it's amazing what a few trees and bushes will do to make a place feel a little more thought out. Landscaping like this is a somewhat tedious process. If you're on console, this is kind of what you're stuck with. But if you're on PC and open to using mods, I do recommend downloading the Tree Anarchy mod and the Prop Anarchy mod, which give you a little more control over how you can use landscaping to your advantage to make a place feel even more realistic. And as you can see, if you get right on the path, it won't actually let you do anything with it. This is a feature, whether you're modded or vanilla, that's relatively new to the game. And what it is the purpose of it is for streets like this, it actually allows you to change the tree. But because of some weirdness in the game, it recognizes all networks and then tells you can't upgrade it. So you just have to play around with it if you get a little too close to the path. So it is okay to leave some open green space in your city, and don't feel like you have to fill up every single space on the map. Lots of real cities have wide open green places for people to enjoy and run around, and also some land just doesn't need to be built on. So what I'm gonna do is use the cafe from the Park Life DLC and put it right here, along with the park restrooms. So we can play with the decals, but let's go into plazas and promenades, because there's some really fun decals here. And what these decals do is they're basically floor tiles, and you can sort of place them anywhere you need to. This one, it looks like the Nordic gamer Chad meme, and I kind of hate it, but I also kind of want it in my city. So my people are just gonna have to live with a Giga Chad right there. Sorry guys, but I am gonna use these cobblestones for most of the decals. And so these trees aren't just outright poking out of the ground when I put in the tiles. I'm gonna be a little more thoughtful about what I put here, and I think that we can use these planters. We'll use 2 of them to sort of make a pot for the plant. It's not perfect, but it'll look better than a palm tree just growing out of stone, because that doesn't happen. There are so many custom decals on Steam as well that you can play with that can do some really cool stuff, like damaged roads or dirt, puddles. And in the vanilla game, if you have plazas and promenades or park life, you're gonna have a lot of options to play with. But for this one, we're just going to plop down some recycling, because every city needs it. And that way, people won't throw their garbage on the ground. So we can put these little bollards that'll kind of formalize the area as pedestrians only. Now it's just decorative, and we don't even have people walking through it, but it looks really official and nice. So we're gonna go with it. And that's just one of many ways to create some nice detailed public space. And we're getting 73 visitors and 40 tourists. Let's see what kind of effect it's having on our land value. So it's having an effect even if it's not phenomenal, but what we do want to look at is tourism. As you can see, it's bringing us a ton of tourists, and we're increasing the city attractiveness. It's still pretty low because it's an ugly ass city, but we're getting there. And as you can see at this point in the game, the city's so large that money's not even a concern. It's just making things look nice and responding to the needs that we do have. I do want to do more with this public space, but because we are starting to get quite a bit of high demand for industry and office, we are going to expand some of that. And how we're going to do that is over here with our industry. Because we already have a lot of industrial over here, I don't feel bad about adding more. I think the hill's a good logical break, and anything on this side of the hill can be an industry, but we are going to create a little bit more of an organic layout because of the way the terrain functions here. All of this is kind of a mess. I'm going to work with the terrain a little bit here. We're going to use this slope terrain tool, and basically what you do is you right click there at the lowest elevation, and then you just slowly slope it down, and it will make everything gradual. And this is sort of where I want it to end, and this is where I want it to go. So it'll give us a cleaner, smooth line with which we can draw a road on that's not going to have an ugly incline. And that's the best way to create roads on terrain, is do a combination of work around the terrain and make the terrain work for you. Especially when you're later in the game and you have a little bit more money to play with, it's okay to do these sort of larger terraforming projects. Also, don't be afraid to get really close to the highway. Lots of real-life cities have these frontage roads going along their freeways, and they'll have a lot of industry and warehouse right next door. It's also a good complementary use because the industry has easy access to outside connections via the freeway, and they're not so bothered by the noise of the traffic on the road. One thing I do notice is that this tile is locked, and we have plenty of money, and we have an available tile, so we're gonna do it. To sort of alleviate all of the industrial traffic that's going to come along this one, we're going to create a second interchange for this industrial area. That way these two areas aren't using the same route. It's not too bad now. The traffic is flowing pretty nicely. As we expand and create more industry over here, we're going to run into some problems. It'll also give us a nice route to the shopping mall, so I think this area will probably realign. Now this is a somewhat curved area, so it's a little more difficult to work with than just a traditionally straight path. So we're going to make this as easy on ourselves as possible. And we're just going to start with this flat section. So I'm going to start here, and then we're going to come out right there. And what we're going to do is draw a box. So each one of these boxes here is 10 units. If you're using precision engineering, you'll be able to see it, but I don't have that mod installed right now. So we're gonna use these boxes as a guide. We want 15 units, which is about half of one of these, which conveniently is right at that palm tree. So we're gonna draw a box all the way around, and we're gonna do it on this side as well. And the way we can do this is we can measure the cost as well. So if you look at the cost of the construction of the road, we want it to be $300. So now we have this box. What I wanna do in the middle here is actually delete all of this. And we're gonna create some overpasses for our highways. We want to come out about there. And we wanna do that same way. And to get this to elevate, I just press page up. We don't wanna come all the way to this road because in the middle here, we're gonna have split roads. So if you look at the zone squares, we have about 3 spaces on each side. We're gonna go with that so we can have some symmetry. And now we have an elevated section that's nice. We'll come about here on each side. We're gonna come about there and there on each side, through the middle. And then we wanna create a cross section like this. We'll come out about $160. And what we're gonna do is use our curve roads to create this roundabout. It's gonna kind of loop into here. And we're gonna do this on the other side as well. And now I do wanna connect these up. So let's get this highway sorted out, because now it's gonna be the part where we're gonna make this interchange look really nice. And we do need enough space to do it. If you have the mass transit DLC, you can use these 2-lane highways to upgrade everything in the middle. But if you don't, it's okay. You can also use regular 3-lane highways if you want. And essentially what we create is a giant roundabout type road in the center here. We just need to make sure everything's going the correct way. It is not. And what we want to do here is actually bring these in at a much smoother angle. And as you can see, I'm using these dirt roads as a guide, and I still have to connect everything up to the highway. So we have a couple more steps to go. But this is sort of the idea behind a dog boat interchange, is it creates this sort of looping bone shape in the middle, which allows for some really free-flowing traffic, especially at higher volumes. So what we want to do now is get rid of some of these guides, freeform the lanes together here so that they connect up to the highway. And now we do have good lane mathematics, with one road splitting off to get on the highway, and then the two roads going through in the middle, and then everything meeting back up here at 3 lanes. But we do have one more step to go, and that's to connect everything up here. So to ensure that the roundabout section doesn't break, we're gonna keep all of these guide roads except for the ones in the middle, which we can get rid of now. And we're gonna have to do something different with this terrain as well. So this has become quite the wild infrastructure project, but I think in the end, it'll be well worth it. Now what we'll wanna do is right click here and then start to slope from here on down. And we did cut this mountain kind of in half, which I didn't necessarily want to do, but in the name of progress, we're gonna let it happen. One thing about the transit network of the city is we do have this road sort of acting as a main collector through the center with the bus lanes. And it's important to notice that it goes straight through downtown, so it is sort of a major road. We are going to connect this up and create an arterial out of it. And if you know anything about road hierarchy, arterial roads are sort of the long distance, higher speed roads. We're going to do something a lot of fun here and look at our terrain, which is pretty good. So they're 3-lane highways with bus-only lanes. And I think these will be quite fun to actually upgrade. And we're going to sacrifice our lane mathematics so that we can get these. Because once we cross the highway, we'll have a nice bus network to play with. And now on this side, we can delete those guide roads. And on this side, we'll create a little stub. And so that is a beautiful dog bone interchange. We can decorate it however we want. So as you can see, I just did some quick decoration. This is by no means realistic, but it makes the interchange look a lot nicer and more put together. And I actually see an opportunity to make sort of a long-term connection, or a long-distance connection of sorts. And we're gonna take it because at some point, this area is gonna develop, and we have lots of money to burn, so I'm not at all worried. But let's look at our terrain to make sure we're not doing anything too egregious. So it is important to have some idea where you're going to expand in the future. And that is quite a steep slope, but again, I'm not too concerned. I'm more concerned about this weird bend here. And now we have a direct bus route that's gonna encircle the entire city and be kind of a ring road. And at some point we will formalize that and make a full ring around the city, but this is an excellent starting point. So now let's get to our industry and start developing this area. What I do wanna do is bring this frontage road, and we're actually gonna use the industry roads because they look cool. We are going to develop a frontage road that does follow the highway pretty closely. And then at some point, we'll come back here.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area. Residents should avoid roads and waterfronts.
Oh my God. You've got to be kidding me. Really? Really? I didn't even know I had disasters on. Well, this changes everything. Ooh, goodness. If you have the Natural Disasters DLC, which I do, you can go into the disaster response unit underneath the fire department. Because everything is flooding, we do want this in some sort of a area a little bit of ways. There. And because I'm screwed and I didn't prepare for the disasters, I didn't get any early warnings. I don't even have emergency shelters. So I'm going to attempt to build one and see what happens. And we'll evacuate some citizens. Because the city is... People are gonna die, and at least some people will stay alive. And now my disaster response unit is flooded. At least this part of the city is safe, but I don't know what to do. We must rebuild.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area. Residents should avoid roads and waterfronts.
And we got a second tsunami. Okay, we really need to prepare now because we know that it's coming. We're gonna build some more shelters. Otherwise, everyone in the city is going to die. Because if we have another tsunami coming, we're basically dead. It killed our tram depot, so it's destroyed our public transit. It's just over for Sandy Beach. It's just done. What is this? It's like Hurricane Katrina, and the government doesn't care. And people are still going about their daily lives, getting on the bus. Their boss was like, you coming into work today? So they gotta get to work. So since this side of the city's relatively safe, we are gonna build another disaster response unit over here. And so the disaster response building actually spawns helicopters that are gonna go to these destroyed areas over here and help to search for survivors. So let's look at them. little dog. They're pretty cute.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area. Residents should avoid roads and waterfronts.
Okay, so we have 3 tsunamis coming. Another thing we can create to help fix this is a water pumping station. So the pumping service sends out vacuum trucks wherever there's floods, and we'll have to connect it up with water pipes. So let's do that. It's gonna send out all the trucks to clean everything up. But right now, we've lost a ton. So what we'll see here, when it says ready for rebuilding, anything that's ploppable and not zoned, when we click rebuild, it'll rebuild it in that same place, so you don't lose everything per se. And as you can see, the city is recovering, but it's still gonna take a while. And as these get ready to rebuild, we can either delete them or we can leave the rubble there. And I'm kind of liking the rubble. It sort of shows that the city has gone through a disaster. I'm not gonna delete it. I'm gonna let it stay until everything rebuilds with our disaster recovery unit. And our mall too. Oh goodness. Whew. This was hard. And there's also dead bodies. Like we're losing a ton of money now. If you have disasters on, as in real life, it's so easy for something to turn bad very quickly. There's looting over here in Koreatown. Look at this. Crime and flooding. This is bad, y'all. I don't think I've ever had a city get destroyed this hard. At least my mall's okay. That's important. People need a place to shop. What? A 4th tsunami. And this is ridiculous. And this is one of those game mechanics that's kind of flawed. I think it's safe to say that our plans for industrial expansion are on hold for a little bit. But at least we're profitable. At least we're starting to gain people back. And now because we've been evacuated for so long.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area. Residents should avoid roads and waterfronts.
I don't even know what to do at this point. They keep telling me that there's a tsunami coming. And as you can see too with the disasters, once they get this blue icon, they'll start rebuilding over time. I know quite a few of y'all have been asking me to do another episode of Sandy Beach, and I was really excited to get to work on it again and make this city look really nice, because it is kind of basic right now, and do like a lot of detailing. And I'm glad we got this mall done, because this mall, chef's kiss, beautiful. And I'm glad we got the interchange done, but unfortunately, this is where Sandy Beach.
The Coast Guard is warning of a tsunami approaching the area.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
You've got to be kidding me.
Roads and waterfronts.
Another one? At least it's hitting out here. I don't care if it hits out here, because that's not going to hurt us. I don't think it's going to hurt us. Let's see. That is such a massive wave. One thing I recommend doing in a disaster like this is don't give up. If you've spent a lot of time working on your city, you really don't want to, you don't want to see it dead, obviously, but see situations like this as an opportunity. At the end of the day, if you want to disable disasters, you can. Natural disasters is one of the least popular DLCs, and people hate it for this reason. The tsunamis just freaking kill your city. If you really want to save your city from being destroyed, here's what you do. You go into options and gameplay, and you turn off use random disasters. Because this is a stupid DLC. It's good in theory, but really you don't need 8 tsunamis in a row. I'm sorry. But if you do get hit with a disaster like this, roll with it. Let it happen and let your city rebuild, because it does actually create some character. Like, this is a part of real life too. Lots of real cities get hit with disasters all the time. If you're looking to learn a little bit more about starting a new city in Cities Skylines, I highly recommend watching this video, where I'll go over 3 of the best layouts with which to start a brand new city. And please, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more of Sandy Beach.